This issue happened back in 2012. I went for a visit to Dr. Higley at Falls Family Practice. I had irritation in my throat, and he said, let's do the procedure where we go into the nose, we spray, we go into the throat, and we see what's going on. And I had to sign a paper, and I said, yes, we'll do that. He went ahead and did it, and he said that I had severe Reineke. And there were no polyps, but I had severe Reineke, and he was worried that I had sleep apnea and I need some attention for that. And he also wanted me to see Dr. Lutz, who is an ENT, to follow up with the Reineke and the sleep apnea after I would have that procedure done. And so on 5/15, I went for a sleep study that was performed. And I guess my understanding, they did find, I needed some attention with that. So the appointment with Dr. Lutz was made on 6/11/2012. And I went into his office, and he decided, even after Dr. Higley gave him the results, he wanted to redo the scope into the throat. And so he did. And when he did that, he had a camera and he said, look at here, look over here. He says, you have 2 huge polyps on your left vocal cord. And I said, what do I know? I said, oh really? I said, well, you just told me I didn't have anything, Dr. Higley. He said, I had Reineke. Reineke means there's swelling in the throat, there's a serious issue, and they can't do surgery for Reineke. Okay, so he said, well, you have polyps, and he says, I'm going to set you up for surgery. And of course, I'm scared. Okay, I got polyps, we better do something. I don't, so, okay. He says, okay, then, in the meantime, I had to go back for the sleep study, their follow-up. And in that follow-up, I told Lily Poon, who did it, I said, I was told I have 2 huge polyps on my left vocal cord, and they're going to be removing them. So then we kind of stopped with the sleep study thing, so we didn't do too much from then on. On 7/25, I had a pre-op at Western Reserve, where they checked all my vitals, all my stuff. And on 8/1/2012 was my surgery. And it ended up, the surgery he did, I had no polyps. I was put on a ventilator, and I spent 2 nights there. And during that procedure, I had awful pain in my back, which I have a bad back. And they proceeded to try to give me a pill and I was choked to death. Then they did high doses of prednisone when I left the hospital. And I was sick for I don't know how long. I mean, months. I even went for a brain scan because they're worried, because the neurologist said, we're going to do a brain scan and see what's making you. I was just frustrated. I couldn't think, I couldn't anything. And okay, so that all went. And then on 8/9, after the surgery, I went to Dr. Lutz for a follow-up. And his assistant, he stood behind his desk in the front, bouncing tennis balls and smiling. And the lady behind the desk went in the room and took me and my little granddaughter and my other friend in the room and said, now Virginia. I don't even know who she was. So, okay, so then Dr. Lutz comes in and proceeds to talk to me, and I said, you're not touching my throat. Nothing. And I sat and I talked to him, very short talk, and I left. He said, one thing he said, I hope you will return in 6 months for me to check. I said, well, we'll see. Anyway, he writes a report here of the 8/9 follow-up, and he's got all this stuff in here, and I don't know where he comes up with it, because I never let him touch me. I sat in a chair, my granddaughter and Steve next to her, And I never let him touch my throat, nothing. And the talk was very small and done, and I left, and he's got a big written up thing of what was, he's got general appearance, awake, alert, sinuses are non-tender, no overlying urethria or edema, throat examination of the, oh God, I can't, orthophonic and oral cavity is free of any lesions. Well, I don't know how he would have known that, because he never looked at anything. I wouldn't let him. I was frightened to death. I had to go for the follow-up, but I wouldn't let him touch me. That was the last I saw him.
And when you filed your complaint,
Filed a complaint.
When you filed your complaint,
When?
you filed a cause of action, you filed, you were upset and you filed something in court, right, called a complaint?
Right.
Okay. What did you attach to that?
What?
What did you attach to it?
Attached to what?
Did you put any, I'm sorry, I'm not making myself clear, I apologize. When you filed and you made your allegations against the doctor and whoever,
Yes.
okay? And their argument is that you didn't file an affidavit with it from another doctor saying he committed malpractice or he breached a standard of care.
With another doctor saying there was something wrong.
Right, exactly.
Affidavit of merit?
Yeah, that's what they call it.
I know
That's-
what you're talking
yeah.
about.
But you did attach a statement from Dr. Lutz, or what did you attach? What did you include with your complaint?
I didn't include an affidavit of
Okay.
merit. I went on to say in there, he signed his own affidavit of merit. He said I had polyps. In the end, I had nothing. Well, I had a lesion from his surgical tools. And there were no polyps. And I did a lot of suffering for a surgery that shouldn't have happened.
Well, I understand your argument as to what happened to you. I'm just trying to figure out,
I
because you have
understand.
to look at
Right.
procedures too.
And I
You have
asked-
to treat everybody the same way that files things.
Why I filed this. Well, when he almost killed me, and it was almost a Joan Rivers, yes, I filed it. Yes.
I understand.
I'm lucky I'm alive, because with Reineke, supposedly, you do not do surgery. You don't do what he did. And I tried to get an affidavit of merit. I talked to several doctors. They, it's very hard. Very hard to get someone to do that, because as they say, if they do an affidavit of merit and the doctor who did the procedure didn't like what they put, then they can sue him or her. So that, but I did talk to my neurologist. He was very helpful. He sent me for a brain scan. I had an MRI on my neck, because there were so many things that happened after this. I mean, I was just like dizzy. I would walk the street, I was so sick, and they finally gave me medicine so I could sleep, because I go to bed and I just pounding, and I don't know. I don't know if it was the fear, the whatever, but it all wasn't right, and it shouldn't have been done. And I don't know if the report from Higley was never looked at by Dr. Lutz, because he would have seen there's no polyps. And if he's a good ENT, if someone's got Reineke, he should know how to treat it and what to do, and you don't do surgery on it, because that means my throat is swelled to the max. And there's no need, you just don't do surgery. So, and this, where he puts the follow-up, that's just ridiculous. He did nothing, and I don't know how he comes up with anything of that nature. And in his verse, 6:11, he says, there's bilateral vocal cord polyps noted greater on the left than on the right. There were none. I was 67 years old. I don't think you'd take a chance doing such, and it was awful. And I'm looking at the time. Uh-oh.
You have
I'm gonna
about
run out.
5 minutes and 19 seconds. If you want to save the 5 minutes, that's fine.
You'll save 5
Yeah,
minutes?
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, it was all, uncalled for, and the way I see it is, his affidavit of merit, he actually wrote his own by saying he did wrong. He says at the end, there was a lesion and a tiny something, they did a biopsy and everything was fine, but there were no polyps. And I think when, you might perform this on a 20-year-old, I've had many back surgeries, but 67, and Reineke is a swelling. If you see it it's in your file. It's a swelling in here, and you don't do surgery on it. There's no surgery to be done on Reineke.
I understand your argument. Thank you, ma'am.
Do you want me to say anything else?
No, why don't you have a seat? And we'll
Okay,
allow the other
thank
side to
you.
argue, okay? Thank you.
I know one thing, I gotta get ready.
Good morning, Honors.
Good morning.
My name is Carol Tran, and I represent the defendants in this case. As the court has briefly heard, this case arises out of a biopsy that was agreed upon by Dr. Lutz and Ms. Blumensaadt after a discussion of the risks and alternatives and after consent forms were signed. The purpose
What
of
does that really matter if it was a breach of the duty of care that there wasn't a polyp there to begin with? Why does it matter that she consented to removal of a polyp if there is one?
I'm just providing a background as to the facts of this
Oh.
case, as to what occurred. The main issue that we have below, and that I believe is before the court today, has to do with the affidavit of merit requirement. This case was originally filed back in 2014, and it was quickly dismissed about 2 months later by Judge Tammy O'Brien because it lacked an affidavit of merit, and because there wasn't any motion for extension of time in order to file an affidavit of merit. And then it was refiled in March of 2015, and despite a year in passage of time, an affidavit of merit was still not appended to the complaint, and there still wasn't any motion for extension of time to file an affidavit of merit. It was dismissed again pursuant to our motion for judgment on the pleadings, and it's important to note that this dismissal is with prejudice because it is the second time, which means that the plaintiff does not have an opportunity to refile this a third time if she so chooses.
Did this ever get to the point of going to mediation or anything?
It did not. It was, I believe in the original case, there was a mediation scheduled, but then we filed a motion for judgment on the pleadings. Mediation was then dismissed, and as a result of our motion for judgment on the pleadings. Now, Rule 10 of the Ohio Rules of Civil Procedure is a mandatory requirement. It uses the language shall throughout the rule. It states that a case involving a medical claim shall be reviewed by an expert witness who has reviewed all the pertinent medical records, is familiar with the standard of care, and has an expert opinion to a reasonable degree of professional certainty that the standard of care was breached by one or more of the defendants, and that this breach was the proximate cause of injuries to the plaintiff. And this rule is an important one because a person without medical training or specialized knowledge may not know whether there was actually medical negligence simply because there was a bad or negative result. And it requires that plaintiffs do their homework and check with a medical expert before bringing medical professionals into the courtroom. So
here we have a dispute whether or not a particular position existed. It appears from what Helen has said is that, in fact, it was later established through medical examination that there were no initial polyps that would have required removal. Am I understanding the facts correctly?
what I understand with respect to the examination that was done by Dr. Lutz, what he wanted to do was to perform a biopsy, because when he went in with the tube, he saw a lesion in the back of her throat. And given her history of tobacco use, he wanted to obtain a biopsy of that lesion to determine if there was a larger medical problem.
Take a sniff of the cells.
Exactly.
To see what the problem was. So it
Yes,
wasn't
ma'am.
really a polyp that was at issue at that point.
Yes, and I believe we can see that from the medical record that was appended to the complaint. There was a medical record from Dr. Lutz which talks about what he discovered and what procedure was agreed to be undergone, which was simply to obtain a biopsy of the lesion. So in this case, it required a medical expert to review this case to determine whether any of the actions were negligent or not, or whether it was a proximate cause of any damages. That was not done in this case, so I ask that this court affirm the trial court judgment below. Thank you.
Excuse me, one more question
Yes.
if I have time. Is there anything in the medical records anywhere that refers to a polyp?
Yes, I believe there is a reference to a polyp in the examination by Dr. Lutz. If I could just grab it real quick.
So in fact, if it was noted, there was a belief in the professional's mind that there was something that resembled a polyp needing attention. So that's not in dispute.
Yes, in the medical record that was authored by Dr. Lutz, he states that there is bilateral vocal cord polyps, noted greater on the left and on the right.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, good, yeah.
You have just a little less than 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll hurry up. Well, here's the little thing you probably have from Dr. Lutz where he says, I do have Reinke's edema. And that should have been dealt with, diagnosed prior to scheduling this procedure. And the standard of care is no surgery with Reinke. And so I think, he should have taken time to treat me or whatever for that. And then maybe later down the road when I felt a lot better, maybe do the procedure and see if there's polyps. There's just, it was an unneeded surgery. And then the opposing party, in my readings, if I understand it right, tried to say, I don't know, trying to say I was stealing money from Medicare and the hospital and the hospital bill. I don't know what they're even talking about. I did not want a surgery, and whatever that cost is not something I should be at fault for. That was another thing, not that maybe it mean, but I did read it in there when they sent out different letters from their firm. But again, Reinke, there's no surgery with Reinke. You deal with it, you treat it, and you wait to see later down the road if it's something. And it was a lot of stress for me, and still is. I mean, I can't bring it into this case because I don't know for sure. I suffered a kidney infection for, they say, months, maybe a year, maybe more, and I was catheterized. Who knows? I almost died from the kidney infection reason. I shouldn't even bring it up, but, these things happened. Then my neck, I've had MRI where, I don't know what they do in surgery. Of course, she can't talk, but she does know.
Well, it sounds like you've been through a lot.
I have been through a lot, and I am 70, and I'll tell you what, I don't know what'll ever go wrong with my throat again. I was scared to death. My husband died on a ventilator at a very young age, and all I could think of is, oh, yeah. So it was rough, and it still is. I have to take a pill to sleep. I am better. I have gotten better. But the kidney infection also being for so long could have been, there's a lot of things that have led to me being a long time recovering. And I even had the doctors, this Dr. Higley at Falls Family Practice, I had Dr. Rafferty, and they fired me as a patient. Kind of to do with, I think, this situation. So I have a new doctor. But they didn't know I even had a kidney infection for a long time. I didn't even know. I had 5 children, never had a kidney infection. And which is, I can't bring that into this, but at any rate, there's just been a lot of things. But the Reinke should not have been surgically taken care of. And I think she knows that, she can't talk. Anyway, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and we will issue a written opinion and decide the case, and then we'll send that to you and to the opposing counsel here. And we also release our opinions online at our website electronically, so you can also go online and review them too. But you'll get it in the mail.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much for.
Thank you. And you know, at home, I hear, and I think I'm okay, I can't hear a darn thing.
Oh, it's okay. I don't talk that loud either, except
Well,
when I'm yelling at my kids.
And
have
I
three
suppose
boys,
that's
so-
why I talk loud. I get on the phone and I'm probably boiling somebody's ear out, like Kim when I can't talk to her.
Well,
Thank you.
all right, thank you both for your presentations.
Thank you.